Good evening, everyone in the UK. Good afternoon. Good morning in the US. Good morning also, or in the Far East, Australia, New Zealand. Maneco 64 here. It's Sunday, December 22nd, 2019. Uh, we've got quite a few people here already. I'm a little early. Just wait for people to come on. We've got James Todd. Good afternoon, James. Mr. Andy from Devon. Good evening, Andy. John Chesterfield, Marek Kalenda, RR. Saying interest rates need to go to stay low, and that's true. And I'll talk about that when I talk about the title of the live stream, Zoltan. Who is Zoltan? Well, he's a guy from Credit Suisse who was involved, worked for the New York Fed during the '08 crisis, helped the Fed engineer the bailout of the and yes, he's saying that the turmoil in the repo market is not over, and it could actually get quite bad this week coming, and towards the end of the year. This time of the year, of course, the markets are a lot quieter. A lot of people are away from their desks for Christmas and New Year, the holidays. So this is quite interesting, and I'm going to go through an article on Bloomberg, which one of my viewers sent to me because I don't subscribe to Bloomberg. You can only read 2 or 3 for free a month. Over my quota, but the title of the article, and this was published, this article on Friday, so very recently. They talked to Zoltan Pozsar, that's his name. He's a Hungarian-born banker for Credit Suisse. The title is Repo Oracle Zoltan Pozsar expects even more turmoil. The Credit Suisse analyst foresaw the recent trouble in the financial. Quite interesting. So let's see. We got John Morris, Jordan London, Tom Taylor. Hi, Tom. Gur Olgi, nice to see you here from Norway. Gur. XRP, Nacho Fool, Miss Victoria from New Zealand. Ms. Victoria, sorry. I'm doing well, Anonymous. Thank you. And you? Big picture, yeah, that's what I try to look at, the big picture, what's going on. Billy is awake. We got him a few bandanas for Christmas. He's wearing one of them. Pablo Pina, he hasn't lost his silver bar. He's put it away in his safe. It's very safe, his safe. RR says, I like that you include articles in your videos. Well, I think that's a good idea. A lot of times there are interesting articles, even on Bloomberg or the FT. Sometimes I interpret them differently than they do, or I find, how can I say, other aspects, look at it from another angle as well. Lord Humongous, nice to see you, Lord Humongous, as usual. Mark W, good evening, Mark. Yeah, Billy's a little more attentive. I just gave him a treat before we came, so maybe he's like paying me back. County Durham, Catman 734. Hi, Catman. Lynn Gordon, I saw that story. They're talking about the Y2K bubble, I think. Not bubble, but the Fed injected a lot of liquidity at the end of 1999, trying to avert a possible Y2K crisis. And of course, after that, the market topped and came off. They could be doing the same thing. So yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about this article, and I'll be taking your questions as well. Any questions you want to ask on the markets, economics, and everything else. Afternoon stacking on the low. So we've got almost 100 people. Yeah, it's 7:32. So I'm just going to go through the article a little bit. It's not very long. So Zoltan Pozar. Let's read. In September, an overlooked but vital part of the global financial system short-circuited. It's called the overnight repurchase agreement, or repo market. And when it seized up the interest rate that institutional borrowers had to pay for very short loans, briefly went briefly through the roof. I think they got up to 10%, the overnight rate. In the aftermath, people in the market sought answers to understand both what had gone wrong and the risk of it happening again. Many have turned to a Credit Suisse Group AG analyst named Zoltan Pozar, who predicted the breakdown with almost eerie accuracy in an August research note. So he's got a track record. Pozar had some bad news when he spoke to Bloomberg, and this was published 2 days ago on the 20th. He said, there's more trouble ahead, despite the Federal Reserve's recent move to pump almost 500 billion into the repo market to prevent a year-end funding squeeze. Deep-rooted problems remain. So I'll stop at that now, and I'll take some of your questions a little bit. And then I'll continue onto the article. One thing I can say about, he's actually saying that the Fed might even have to start doing longer term treasuries. Right now, they're just doing QE on T-bills. That's aside, of course, from the money they're pumping into the repo market. You need to understand that the 200 or so billion lost track now that they're pumping into the repo is separate from the 60 billion that they're doing in T-bills. But he thinks they're going to have to do the long term, and that's, they can't get away from calling it a QE. And he seems to think that the 500 million they've promised to have available over the end of the year and the beginning of next year might not be enough. So I think the people at the New York Fed are going to be quite busy this Christmas. Their address, of course, 33 Liberty Street in Lower Manhattan. Afternoon stacking on the low. 20. I think this economics. Well, you look at all the economic data for the major economies, even the U.S. We are slowing down already. And this crisis could start on Wall Street, in the financial sector, with the repo market. Lord Humongous says, I've been promoting your channel on other channels. Thank you, Lord Humongous. I've found that kind of my viewership, my subscribers counts keep going up, but it seems like I still get very good viewership of my videos, for sometimes 1,000, but for some reason it feels like YouTube could be shadow banning me. I'm getting a lot of video. I only get just over 2,000 views. About a month ago, I used to never get 2,000 anymore. It was either 3, 4, or 5. But thank you anyway, Lord. We just have to keep going ahead and just keep going. Lynn Gordon says, I'm the Oracle, always enjoying my shows. Oh, that's flattering. I try to look at things in a transparent, honest way. I like to, yeah, that's what I try to do. Hopefully, it adds value to most of you. That's what. Also, I'm not here just to make videos for the, for making videos. I like to add some value to viewers' experience, and hopefully I'll keep doing that. Sometimes it's hard to find topics to talk about every day. I do a video every day. Recently, I've been doing more than one because that increases. Trying to get more viewers and more subscribers. And there has been quite a bit of topics to talk about. This morning, I made a video about how the U.S. Congress and President Trump They've signed into law the National Defense Authorization Act for 2020, and in that they basically put sanctions on Germany and Russia. It looks like these sanctions will stop the Russians and the Germans building the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. I think that's quite serious. Lord Humongous, would you do an interview on my friend's channel? Yes. Let me know who it is, and yeah, I'd like to know who it is first, but probably yes, if he's your friend, I probably will do an interview. Yeah, maybe if you give me your email, I can send you an email. Maybe after yeah, give me your email and I'll send you an email where we can talk about it. Repo market, John Hill. Well, it's been on repo market since September, has been in trouble. The liquidity has dried up. The Fed has had to intervene for the first time since 08, 09, and they've pumped hundreds of billions. And they keep pumping overnight and term repo as well. Here's Lord Humongous. Write down his. I'm going to write down Lord Humongous' email. Can 69 at gmail.com. So with that question about the repo market, I'm going to continue on that in that article about the repo market, and it says the extent of those problems could become clear, and that's the troubles or problems in the repo market could become clear before the close of 2019 as banks scramble to get their books in order for regulators. And this is a quote from Pozar. He says, if the year end is less of a problem because of the repo bazooka we got from the Fed, that's the 500 billion. And if the message of my report played a part in getting that bazooka, then that's not a nice way to be proven wrong, Pozar says. But now we're getting into a point in the year when balance sheet problems are going to flare up. And I think the system will get gummed up again. And the article says, if he's right, it means there's something amiss in a more than $2 trillion market that lubricates the gears of finance. The repo market is where the cash rich of the financial system lend to the cash poor, with banks, money market funds, hedge funds, broker dealers, asset managers. They may not have the liquidity they need. Repo lets them borrow cash against those assets to tide them over. And it says here, finance, a lack of liquidity kills you quick, says Perry Merling, a Boston University economics professor who co-authored a 2013 paper with Pozar. How do you not get killed by liquidity? By rolling it over. That's the overnight repo. By saying, I can't make the payment today, I'll make it tomorrow. That's basically what overnight repo does. So I'll stop here at that right now. Hopefully that cleared up that question about the repo and what's going on. Al Cubes in London. David Bradley, once reset, will you short metals on the way down? Plan, David Bradley. I'm not sure what you mean by on the way down. I think this time, really, if they do, the system, I think, is being reset since, I think, the year 2000, when the Dow Gold ratio got to 45. It's being reset ever since. I think when there is a final reset, they're going to move that much lower. They're going to have to keep it where it is, even if it goes down. I don't plan on going short gold. I don't think it's something that I want to do, because gold is money. How can you short money? I'd have to go into the futures market. I might liquidate some gold if I think gold relative to another asset that I think I need to have is overvalued, or I might liquidate gold and buy some cheap assets that I think have potential, but I'm not going to short gold. I'm not going to use the futures market. Jen, Uphold metals down to after the election. I'm not sure if he cares about the price of gold. Who knows? Um, I don't think presidents really can do much about what goes on in the market, in my opinion. If anything, he's going to keep trying to get the Fed to keep pumping money into the system, to keep cutting rates. If anything, that's positive for gold, I would say. I haven't heard about the JP Morgan Singapore. I haven't. Vbjorn, Grits, and I see a slowdown in industry in Norway, where I live, cutbacks in workforce and shipyards. Yeah, in the UK as well, the economy has been slowing down. The latest GDP numbers were like almost flat. Tom Jode, stocks right now, I don't own any stocks. I do have cryptocurrencies. I think they're more interesting to own than stocks. I did have some mining shares until recently, but I liquidated them. Not because I don't think they're going down, only because I had it in a private pension and I could liquidate that private pension now. And I wasn't happy. The costs were really high. The costs were eating into my holdings. So I just thought about liquidating it. But to answer your question, no, I don't have any stocks right now. Tom Jode, are you amazed that only 1% or so of the population gets it? Yeah, it is amazing, Tom. There was an old saying about Lenin that the best way to destroy the middle class was, or the bourgeoisie as he called it, was to inflate the system through inflation and currency debasement. He said that only 1 in a million people would understand that, and that was like 100 years ago or so, and we're still on the same boat, which is sad. Blythe Masters, yeah, she worked for JP Morgan. She was the person who started out the credit default swaps, the derivatives. Um, she's got a lot to answer for, Blythe Masters. Nathan, no, I'm not buying stocks right now. I'm holding on. I've bought some more cryptocurrencies. I've bought some more gold and silver, but not stocks. I don't care if stocks melt up. It doesn't really matter to me. So let's continue with that article. So it says here, on September 17th, this was this year, throughout Wall Street, fund managers were suddenly hurting for this short-term cash, and big banks seemed unwilling or unable to provide it. At the heart of Posar's argument is the idea that two grand experiments, one in monetary policy, the other in regulation, have collided to make the repo market more prone to clogging up in this way. The monetary experiment is quantitative easing, of course. After the financial crisis, the Fed began stimulating the economy by buying bonds. The money it spent to do so added to excess reserves held by banks. After years of QE, big banks became accustomed to always having cash to lend in the repo market. They were swimming in excess reserves, but then the Fed began tapering off QE, which I think Yellen said would be like watching paint dry, but it wasn't. Buying fewer bonds and reducing their excess reserves in the system. There's still a lot, but this is where the regulatory experiment comes in to prevent a repeat of the '08 crash. Bank watchdogs have tightened rules in such a way that the biggest lenders feel they have to keep more reserves on hand. So falling reserves and banks' desire to hold on to more began to pinch. And it says here, this is quite interesting as well. This goes to the talk about hedge funds. And I think the BIS did a report a couple weeks ago about the repo and hedge funds. They probably got their information from Pozar. And it says here, at the same time, other financial players were starting to rely more on the repo market. There's been a very sharp increase in demand for funding in the last 12 months, in particular from levered investors such as hedge funds. In September, all those forces combined with a few other quirky events such as corporations needing cash settle quarterly tax bills to create a brief system-wide shortage of cash. So I'll stop at that right now. So hopefully that's helping you guys know what's going on here. Liberty Cat, yeah, they don't want to call it QE because they're doing it in the T-bills in the short-term paper, but it is QE in all for all intents and purposes. I just looked at the Fed's balance sheet this afternoon. It's gone up by 378 billion since the end of August. So that's QE. If their balance sheet is increasing, that means they're printing money out of thin air to buy assets to put in their balance sheet. In the last month, it's increased by about 107 billion. And I think it's we could see a big increase in the next 3 to 4 weeks, depending on how the repo market does in the next few days. I think it could be very, usually, as I've said before, Christmas is really quiet markets, and it's not a very liquid market. So that could create a bit of problem, the liquidity. Bobby 8270, how will precious metals and sterling be affected due to Brexit? Well, I don't think it's gonna. Right now, we saw sterling move from 130 to 135 the day of the election, or overnight after the election, and now it's come right back down to 130. It looks like we could have a hard Brexit. It's in law now that a hard Brexit is possible. So yeah, I think sterling doesn't look very good technically. Precious metals, there's two factors impacting the price of gold in sterling. That's sterling itself versus the dollar and the price of gold. So I think the price of gold is going to stay firm in dollars, and I think sterling is going to remain relatively weak versus the dollar. So it's going to be even firmer, I think, the price of gold in sterling. Still quite volatile, though, mainly because cable or sterling is moving in a quite volatile manner versus the dollar. It's not gold that's moving in a volatile manner, but the pound itself. Lord Humongous, I did invest in that's Northern Dynasty, isn't it? NAC. A couple of years ago, there's talk. I think it was talk right after Trump took over, or right after the election, that they're going to get the go-ahead for the big mining operations in Alaska. It's a speculative play, NAC. I've I've traded that stock before. It could, I think it went up to $3 or $4. I think right now it's below 1. So you could see some potential there, NAC. I haven't followed the story in the last year and a half or so, but I used to follow that quite closely. 39 cents a share right now. Pebble. Yeah, that's the Pebble project, isn't it? What will happen to the BOE when Carney leaves? Well, some people are saying the new governor, he was pro-Brexit, and that they might cut rates. There are people saying that they need to cut rates again. The Bank of England, they might start more QE. Who knows? I think they might start more QE. They haven't done QE since last year. So let's go back to the article. This is an interesting part here. Posar says another squeeze is likely. The potential results, paying for hedge funds that use the repo market as a source of cheap money, and a potential ripple, that's an important part, a potential ripple effect on assets such as stocks and bonds as investors are forced to cut back on positions. His boldest prediction is that the Fed could push more liquidity into the system by buying longer-term treasuries again. Posar says that would amount to a new round of QE. So that's interesting. This guy's been right on the money. He predicted in August the repo crisis, and now he's predicting the Fed is going to start buying longer-term treasuries. Yes, 10-year yields have gone up from around 140, 145. They're now at 192. The Fed might want those yields to go back down, especially with the US government, Uncle Sam, spending like a drunken sailor. 5% plus budget deficits are not normal in a supposedly good economy. These are deficits that are usually carried in a recession. So in this case, the goal would be to keep things running smoothly to stimulate the economy. Some analysts say the central bank is already on top of the situation. The Fed has been very proactive in addressing liquidity concern that emerged in September, says Jerome Schneider, head of short-term bond portfolio at PIMCO. The issue, he says, is not that there won't be enough liquidity, but what the cost of that liquidity will be. So it says Posar's warning, get attention on Wall Street, because he has a big picture view of this complex market and can explain it well. The interesting thing they say about Posar is that he was not trained as an economist, right? Doesn't have an economics degree. And I think that's why he looks at things differently. He hasn't been brainwashed like a Keynesian. So he has an MBA and not an economics degree, according to this. He says, finance is anthropological. He thinks it's important to understand that every bank has a different business model and how that shapes people's decision to lend or not, even at a time when the numbers say they have plenty of money. So I thought that was really interesting. So, and it goes to show as well, in my opinion, that just because the Fed, a lot of people think the Fed has all this power to just print trillions and make things work because of the numbers. Posar is saying there's more to it than that. And I think we need to be really cautious. Am I saying there's going to be a crisis this coming week towards the end of the year? No, but it isn't out of the realms of possibility. And I think people could be very complacent right now. Yeah, Bitcoin, I was looking, Bitcoin has been going up, blockchain appraise. I did see that. Let's see where we're now. 7,400, up 3%. Ethereum up 3.4. Yeah, Litecoin up almost 5%. So it looks like cryptocurrencies are catching a little bit of a bid here. Philip A, has Bitcoin seen the bottom? Well, I know Bo Pony doesn't have a great track record with the stock market, but he's been pretty good with the cryptocurrencies. He thinks we hit a bottom December 16th, December 17th. So we'll have to see. Bix Weirdo thinks something's going to happen on December 31st. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of New Year's Eve parties. No, I don't know. It's possible, but December 31st is usually like at least here in London, in the city of London, it's a half day. Uh, who knows? But the other thing, I think a lot could happen also in the new year, uh, because the Fed is providing this 500 billion middle of January. Hi, Norman Liu. Nice to see you here. Joe Norris bought 34 ounces of silver. Good, real silver. Yeah, not ETFs, SLV. John Ainsworth, why do you speculate on crypto? Isn't it true speculation without intrinsic value? Well, I think crypto has more value than Federal Reserve notes. They created, just type it in there. At least Bitcoin, you have to mine it. You have to create some kind of application with other cryptocurrencies. It's not really just purely created out of thin air. And yeah, I think I'm I'm prepared to lose the little that I have in cryptocurrencies, but I also think there's big upside potential. Bitcoin, yes, it's at 7,000 right now. At one point, it was $8, $10, went up to 1,000, dropped to 100, went up to 20. Well, when it dropped to 100 from 1,000, everyone thought it was finished. It's the same thing now. I think there is a chance that we could see new highs in Bitcoin, and that's why I have some. Not that much, not not that much that it makes me uncomfortable and not sleep well at night. What's going on? Can do one? Can I send a copy of my unreleased book about how I learned about the world through Bitcoin? Um, well, have you got a link? Just send me a link to it. This live stream is going to be recorded and is going to be published on my channel, so you can put a link there to your book. I'll have a look. Pablo Pina, the Nord Stream 2, basically, I recommend you watch my video from today because I don't want to cover that. But I think it's important because Germany has been one of America's closest ally for many, many years. And the fact that the US can do what they're doing to a close ally is not a good signal. And I think that will lead to a lot of people trying to find alternatives to dealing with the US and the US dollar. I don't think it's going to happen overnight. The US dollar or the Federal Reserve notes are still really important for world transactions, for reserves, but I think the trend is going to be away from the dollar. Yeah, copper is trying to move up. It's broken through like a triangle. I think on Friday it came off a bit. Uh, I think oil as well has potential. That's trading up. It's breaking out as well, I think. Silver, of course, I spoke about it yesterday. I made a video about silver. I think silver is probably the most undervalued asset out there. I'm not saying that I'm going to get rid of my gold to get silver. I'm going to keep both of them. I'm just going to have a drink of water. I got one of my mugs here, Become Your Own Central Bank. And that's got 1 ounce buffalo, keep stacking. And then don't get caught holding the bag. It's a 1 ounce silver kangaroo, Australian. do one. Give me your email, and then I'll send you an email, uh, and then you can reply to my email with the PDF if you don't mind. Don't like to give my email here. You might not like to do that either. So, or you could join. I have a Patreon account for $1. You could become a patron, and send me a message with the link. Maneco64 on Patreon, just for $1 a month, and you can cancel it after 1 month if you don't want to give $1 a month or donate. Jules Signore, do you believe there's not too many pure silver miners out? Mining is one of them. Pan American Silver, a few others, but silver is usually a byproduct of copper, and copper prices have been quite depressed. So I don't think copper mining is really booming. So I would tend to say, yeah, that there's not that much silver out there, and silver, unlike gold, of course, is a lot of it is consumed. Gold, the stock to flow ratio is like 64 to 1. Silver would be a lot lower. Jim California from Central California. You're welcome for the silver update. No problem. Yeah, Hecla is primarily a silver miner. That's right. Yeah, William Birkenroad. Yeah, the Americans, they want to sell liquefied gas to the Europeans, but that's much more expensive to do that. It's much easier for the Europeans to get the gas from the Russians through a pipeline. That's what it's all about. The Americans want the Europeans to buy American gas, liquefied gas. Liquefied gas, of course, has to be shipped in tankers. The pipeline is much simpler and cheaper, I would say. Nathan E., why does everyone assume the Fed doesn't know what it's doing? They seem to be winning and having been winning for 100 years. Doubt they didn't see the spirit of time coming. You're partly true about that, but I think a lot of times they think they can solve every problem. One example that where they made a mistake was thinking that they could normalize the balance sheet back down and not have any problems. They had to backtrack massively this year. Late last year, people were saying they're going to hike 4 times. They're going to keep unwinding back the balance sheet to around 3 trillion, maybe less. And now we're back up above 4 trillion in the balance sheet, and they've cut rates 3 times. So yeah, they're still in charge, but they yeah, maybe that's what they want to do. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's their agenda is to pretend that they don't know what they're doing, so people don't see that their game is really pumping and dumping and extracting wealth. They're a bubble machine, right? You could be right. Blockchain appraise? No, I don't make any videos on Patreon. Uh, I just yeah, I just have people who donate through Patreon, but I don't put anything extra there. But it's easier for you to contact me. It's almost like an email. So, and I'll answer your questions on Patreon, but I don't put any extra videos there. It's just for donations. But it's easier to contact me through there just for $1 or more if you want to. Yeah, Aaron Levy, I agree with you. Bitcoin and cryptos and precious metals are a good hedge. Lord Humongous, yeah, I've got. Oh, I froze up. Did I? Yeah, I've got right now in the Teespring store, maneco 64. I got 20% off if you use the promo code Xmas 2019. You get 20% off things like this mug, and got Billy mugs, Billy t-shirts. Just go and have a look. And that's good until the end of the year, that 20% off. David Bradley, yeah, that's the, I use Pro V1X. I've used Titleist. I've been playing for many years. Before, I used to use Titleist Balatas. I used to use 90 compression, if you remember compression. So I've always used Titleist. I use the Pro V1X, which is the red number. Pro V1 has got the black number. Yeah, that's the only ball I use. Titleist Pro V1X. They are expensive, but I'm used to them. I like the feel of them. Sorry for those of you who don't play golf. That wasn't one of the questions there. Government, John DeGlass, governments lie, bankers lie, even auditors sometimes lie. Gold tells the truth. Yeah, Lord Rees-Mogg, that was Jacob Rees-Mogg's dad. I've got his books about gold on the shelf. He died, I think his name was William Rees-Mogg. He died a few years ago. He was the editor of the Times of London. He was a gold bug. John Norris, the only, unfortunately, Teespring does not accept silver. They only accept Federal Reserve notes for now. Bobby 8270, what will happen to Prince Andrew? Pinocchio. Well, I'm not really I do watch sometimes Sean Atwood, Strixon's Z-Star Great Ball. I haven't tried Strixon. I'm quite loyal Titleist. Lord Humongous, be nice if Clint opened a silver account. Yeah, I think they're thinking of doing that, but right now they don't have one in the U.S. I think they could eventually have a silver account in the U.S. Aaron Levy says it's astounding to seeing the ignorance of everyday people, even close friends that don't believe the system is collapsing. Well, that's true, but all you can do is try to talk. Make my videos and have my channels because I feel that I can add some value, can warn people about the system and I learned a lot about the system, not only because I worked in the city, but also because I've been studying the system, and that wasn't for work. Buffering a lot now. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on. There's nothing I can do about it, unfortunately. No, I don't have any intel on bankers' suicide. I think the last one was a ex-Deutsche Bank banker who was banker to Jeffrey Epstein, I think. So I'll take a few more questions and then we'll call it a day. We've been on for about 45 minutes. Good night, XRP. Take 2 or 3 more questions here. We'll have a sip of my water. over the next few weeks, or are we at the bottom now? Well, I did a video about silver yesterday. If you watched that video, I tend to think that silver is going to start outperforming gold, and that's a good sign for precious metals. And the seasonality of silver over the last 69 years has been January, the middle of December to the end of February has been the best time for silver. So I think they're gonna, the odds are that they're gonna do well. Not saying they're going to the moon or anything, but they should move higher. Do one says join your Patreon. We'll be sending the book. Thank you, and thanks for sending the book. Yeah, the other thing about gold and silver, and I'm victim to that as well, is that we keep focusing on the fiat price of gold and silver. We should worry about how many grams or ounces we have to not keep averaging. It should help. And never borrow, I would say, to buy gold and silver, and never buy gold and silver you can't afford to buy. So you don't have to worry about the price and having to liquidate it in the short term. So, all right, everyone. Thank you for showing up and participating in the live stream. I wish you all a great rest of the weekend or beginning of the week if you're in the Far East. And I'll talk to you later. Take care. Bye.